Good morning. Welcome into the Cowboys Report with a new sponsor here. It is 8 Sleep, the high-tech solution to your age-old sleeping issues. Their Pod 3 cover slips right over your mattress, bringing you heating and cooling tech that keeps you comfortable and sleeping deeper for a better, more restful night. More on them later on in today's show. You can get $200 off, by the way, at eatsleep.com/chatsports. Before we get into the rumors out there around the Cowboys, Dan Quinn, Dak, and some mock drafts, if you want a second Cowboys video later this afternoon, then share this one. Let's make sure the numbers stay up in the offseason, so I don't have to do stuff like Bengals and Alabama, etc. Help me out and help yourself out by sharing today's video on social media. Let's get into Dan Quinn and interesting development, I'll call it, on that front. Quinn is still in the running for the Seahawks head coaching job. He was set to get a second interview, with the Tennessee Titans. That, of course, is not going to happen. They have since hired Brian Callahan. Now, one report says that he could look to hire UCLA head coach Chip Kelly as his offensive coordinator, which, oh boy, that's something. The expectation has been from the Cowboys, at least what they've leaked out there, that he's going to return as defensive coordinator if there is no head coaching job. So that's certainly worth mentioning there. Here is the report from Shane Hoffman, who I am not familiar with, but has written some stuff. It's kind of a freelance for the Oregonia, a West Coast paper. Hearing that not only is an NFL return likely for former Oregon coach Chip Kelly, but it could take the form of a package deal with Cowboys defensive coordinator Dan Quinn. The Seahawks are a likely destination. That's something. I didn't have Dan Quinn hiring Chip Kelly on my bingo card at any point in the past couple of off seasons. I'm not really sure how I feel about it, frankly. Kelly's offense is not the one you remember from his time in the NFL or at Oregon. It's less read and zone option stuff. It's still an element, but there's just a lot of misdirection, which actually, I from a Dan Quinn perspective, makes me feel a bit better about him because that's been an issue for him on defense. Maybe he's identified that, knows he has to address it if he does come back to the Cowboys as a defensive coordinator. The second interviews Quinn has lined up right now are Seattle and the Washington Commanders. Now, there are 5 open jobs at this stage. Atlanta, Carolina did interview Dan Quinn. He's obviously not going back to Atlanta, by the way. The Commanders, Seahawks. As of filming, the Chargers job remains open, but a lot of buzz around Jim Harbaugh at this stage. So do you think Dan Quinn ends up getting a head coaching job for the Dallas, or leaving the Dallas Cowboys? It's the pinned comment on today's video. The ad comes here on YouTube. Take advantage of it. Head down there. Y for yes, N for no. Now, the Seahawks job is the one I am watching. He has so many ties to the organization that's very noteworthy. He was the Legion of Boom defensive coordinator. Their defense has been a real problem for several years in a row now. He's also a hard sell to any team. After the way the year ended, not just in the playoff game, but down the stretch where your defense really, really struggled, that's a tough pitch to make. And for the Commanders, like you're the number 2 overall pick, you're going to go defensive mind and not like a Ben Johnson or something to groom your Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, worst case scenario, I guess, pick there. I think Seattle's the one to monitor here. But it's also worth mentioning this, and bear with me as I get a little bit philosophical here. The resume of a coordinator, the things you do in that role that make us excited or not excited about you being a head coach are not always the things that make you a successful head coach. There's different responsibilities, there's different leadership, etc. stuff that you have to manage beyond just the Sunday game, game plan and game calling, which we'll see if Quinn even wants to call the defense if he gets a DC or a head coaching job somewhere. It's also funny how quickly things change in the NFL. Every 2 to 3 years, your roster looks way different, and the way you feel about a coach feels pretty differently either. 2 years ago, it was, should you keep Dan Quinn or Kellen Moore instead of Mike McCarthy? What happened to one of those guys' job? Should you fire them and should you fire Mike and promote your coordinator? And now Kellen Moore is probably out of a job as the Chargers OC. Dan Quinn might be a head coach, and not a lot of us are bothered by that. Some of us don't even want Quinn back anyway. It's why coaches don't often pass on head coaching gigs. Yeah, you have a small window sometimes. I mean, look at the OC environment. The longest standing coordinator was Brian County. He's now head coach. Every single offensive coordinator spot is turned over since 2020. That's insane. So life comes at you quickly in the NFL. As mentioned, today's Cowboys Report is made possible by 8 Sleep. It is the high-tech solution to your age-old sleeping issues. Did you know that sleep science shows in order to sleep our best, our body temperature needs to drop in the early and middle part of sleep and then rise in the morning? The 8 Sleep pod cover will help improve your sleep by automatically adjusting your bed's temperature based on your individual needs. The cover is added to a bed like any fitted sheet is and allows you and your partner to cool or warm your side of the bed as low as 55 degrees and up to 110 degrees. There's no better way to improve your day-to-day life than better sleep. And the easiest way to do that is with the 8 Sleep Pod 3. Start the new year right and invest in the rest you deserve with the 8 Sleep Pod. Go to 8sleep.com/chatsports and get $200 off plus free shipping on the pod cover by 8 Sleep. Again, start that new year right. Invest in the rest you deserve by going to 8sleep.com/chatsports to get $200 off the pod cover. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. Let's visit the latest on Dak Prescott. And I think there's 2 fairly important things for Dallas Morning News to mention and write about that. I think I'm glad they did. One of which we've discussed, but it's worth going over again when the big paper does it, right? DMN says the Cowboys plan to move forward on an extension with Dak Prescott. That's been mentioned by others as well. I will say, I am not treating it as a guarantee a deal gets done. Not just because of the way the year ended, but because of the poor handling from what the Cowboys have done in previous years. They have not handled things properly with their contracts. Not just that, with Tank Lawrence, etc. The Cowboys, though, kind of have to make up their minds and make a decision by mid-March. Got to be under the salary cap by then, and you do not want to have Dak at nearly $60 million. Nobody wants that. That was never the Cowboys' plan either. Here's what Michael Gehlken wrote. All indications are the Cowboys will work to sign Prescott to a long-term contract extension in the next several weeks. There seems a strong chance these talks culminate in a finalized contract by mid-March. The notion, however, that re-signing Prescott is the club's only means to avoid him being under contract at nearly $60 million cap charge for 2024 is false. Now, if you've been subscribed and watched the show, you know we've discussed both of those options, or I guess all 3 options that we'll lay out again here momentarily. The bigger takeaway for me is that is the Cowboys' plan. Now, we have discussed the restructure option in the past, and we'll do it again right now. There are 3 paths here the Cowboys have with the Dak Prescott contract. All of them have, well, at least maybe some cons involved. I would say one doesn't have much of a pro. That's the first option. Do nothing. Allow Dak to carry a $59.46 million cap hit in 2024. I think it makes no sense. You're not going to be competitive with that figure. The Cowboys' plan has never been to have that figure there. The maximum restructured cap hit, again, per over the cap, $37.6 million. Extension cap hit, $33.22, because you can add more void years to it to free up some more space. The numbers might not actually be that. They might go a little bit lower if they don't, fully max out the year 1 base salary to, push all the money possible in the future. So it's a estimate. There are massive implications, though, for 2025 if you choose the restructure option. Dak Prescott will hit free agency. He cannot be tagged. The deal would leave around $58 million in dead money in 2025 for a quarterback who might not be there. And oh, by the way, if you let him hit free agency before you extend him, you have to carry that dead money on top of your new contract as well. So you would be paying a massive figure if you let him get to free agency and you didn't work out a deal this time next year. You kind of need to make up your minds here. You have enough of a sample size. So do you want to extend Dak Prescott? S for you want to sign him. W for you want to wait and see what happens, which I hate that idea. But you can vote in the comment section. I believe in democracy. S for sign, W for wait. You got to make up your mind. You should either extend him or, frankly, move on and blow it all up because you're not finding a better quarterback for 2024. That's not how this game works. Dak has all the leverage, though. because you waited way too long the first time his deal was up. This would not be a problem right now if you had just paid him back when you wanted to. In fact, we're talking about, wow, that Dak Prescott contract looks pretty reasonable. You didn't play it correctly. I don't trust Dallas after the previous talks were so drawn out, so at times ugly, and so just poorly handled. Are they going to pay the market rate? And the market rate, at least for Todd France as Dak's agent, is whatever he wants it to be, because he's a year away from being where no quarterback actually gets to be. In his prime, a year removed from being a second-team All-Pro. That doesn't happen at the quarterback spot. The closest thing was Kirk Cousins, who's very good, wasn't a second-team All-Pro, and got a 3-year fully guaranteed contract from the Minnesota Vikings. And basically has had a fully guaranteed contract every year since then, with the way the deal's been structured. If frankly, this comes down to, are you going to pay the market rate, or is Dak going to do you a solid? And, maybe the market rate isn't number one highest paid quarterback. Although, Dak's better than Jalen Hurts, so what are we going to do there? Is Dak going to do him a favor? That's kind of where we're at. That's why you've kind of messed this up. If you tried to extend him this past offseason, like some people suggested, all of a sudden that deal would look pretty favorable. Wouldn't have. We will have a lot more on that. We'll go more in depth on maybe what the contract could look like in the future. Hit that sub button here on the Cowboys Report, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. As promised, we'll hit the Mel Kiper mock draft now. I hate when this happens. It's just bad luck. But I did the Cowboys 7-round mock draft on Monday's live show. Went out on demand yesterday. If you haven't watched it, please go do so. Mel drops his new mock draft, and we have the same player. It happened. That actually kind of makes me think that it's not going to be the pick then, because that's too much agreement. But it would be a good selection. Jordan Morgan, the offensive tackle, out of Arizona. You could keep Tyler Smith at left guard, put Morgan in there at left tackle, do whatever you want with Tyron Smith. Maybe it's back as a backup because he can't stay healthy. He was healthier this year. Still missed time. I don't trust him there. And Morgan can run block and he can pass protect. I would have no complaints about going offensive line in round one, especially given the Cowboys' really good track record of taking offensive linemen in round one and it working out. I was young, but I was wrong. I hated the Travis Frederick pick. They nailed it. So grade the Mel Kiper mock draft for me. A, B, C, D, or mock draft pick, I should say, for the Cowboys. A, B, C, D, or F in the comments. You've got 2 starters set to hit free agency this year, Tyron Smith and Tyler Biadasz. Zach Martin's got 1 to 3 max, I think, more years on this team. I thought you saw some nice stuff from Brock Hoffman, TJ Bass on a smaller sample size. With the way the draft, I think, will play out, I think there will be good offensive linemen for you on the board. Wasn't just, by the way, that you had, Jordan Morgan there. Graham Barton was there. So was Jackson Powers Johnson, by the way. Amarius Mims out of Georgia was there. If you want defense, Clayton McKinstry was there. I'm actually not opposed to that one at all. I was kind of surprised he didn't go at all in Mel's mock draft. If you want a disruptive defense tackle, Byron Murphy's there. I think when it's all said and done, Edgerrin Cooper is going to be my number 1 linebacker out of A&M. But I'd rather spend a day 2 pick because the value in round 1, round 2 is not going to be that different compared to like the offensive lineman that'll be there. So if you take Morgan in round 1, long way to go. Would not be upset about it.